Part 55. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 542. The young man said lightly with a slight smile on his lips, my name in this life is Liu Qingyu. Liu Qingyu. The lord of the underworld thought quickly in his mind. After a moment, he had no clue. In his impression, there was no immortal king named Liu Qingyu at all. As for the Liu family, he didn't even know about it. After all, the Liu family was just an imperial family. That's all. Although they have some reputation in the Sumeru realm, they are limited to their own 1/3 of an acre. Their influence cannot spread to the entire Sumeru realm, let alone the underworld as far away as the Xianguang realm. The underworld, the owner has never heard of it, which is normal. Are you the reincarnation of an immortal king? The lord of the underworld said in a deep voice. So what? Liu Qingyu stepped forward and came to the lord of the underworld. He said coldly, you don't have much time now. Will you hand over the inheritance of the underworld or not? Kick. The lord of the underworld took a few steps back, his breath was stagnant, and his expression was extremely difficult. Liu Qingyu in front of him seemed to have turned into a demon god at this moment, with 9 heavens above his head and 9 netherworlds down below. His breath was like a mountain, and the oppressed person could not breathe. It's extremely breathtaking. Even standing up is extremely difficult. If it were in its heyday, it might be better, but now, I'm seriously injured, not to mention the attack. Even resisting the opponent's momentum is extremely difficult. There is no doubt that if he takes action, he will be suppressed soon. Don't push me too hard. If I kill myself here, you won't get anything. The lord of the underworld said coldly. He glanced around and glanced at the mark in his hand without anyone noticing. At this time, the mark on the palm of his hand was already shining to the extreme, which meant that this subordinate of the underworld was not only knowing everything here, it's even possible. He stood outside the battlefield, quietly watching everything happening here. Why hasn't he come forward yet? Scared? Or is it that his strength is simply not enough to deal with an immortal king, so he has no plans to show up? The lord of the underworld is going crazy. If the other party can't deal with an immortal king, it's simply impossible. As he approached the battlefield, not only was he unaware, but even Liu Qingyu, the reincarnation of the immortal king in front of him, was unaware of his presence. These signs indicate that the subordinate of the underworld in the past was also an immortal king. The reason why he didn't come forward was because he wanted to watch himself die. Can you only rely on yourself? The lord of the underworld was extremely solemn in his heart. He put his hands behind his back, and a pitch-black halberd slowly condensed out. The yin energy was overwhelming, and the sound of ghosts crying and gods howling resounded throughout the world. Want to fight to the death? Liu Qingyu was not surprised. He spread his fingers and pressed forward. A huge palm appeared, covering the sky and the sun, as if it represented the will of God. There is only this palm in the sky and on the earth. The rumble was suppressed. Even though I haven't regained my former strength, you can't resist it? I am the lord of the underworld, how can you covet the inheritance in my hands? The lord of the underworld let out a long roar, and he rose into the sky. The halberd in his hand covered the sky, and he met the palm of the sky, and shouted. If I don't die today, you will all have to pay the price in the future. His hair was disheveled and he was holding a big halberd. His fighting spirit was like a sea, surging and spreading outwards, as if a god of war had descended and was invincible. It is hard to imagine that he could explode like this in the face of an immortal king. Strength. Boom. There was a loud noise. The euphorbia and the palm collided together, erupting with a shocking brilliance. The aftermath swept in all directions, and the whole chaos was rumbling and shaking, as if the world was being created. In the aftermath of the explosion, a figure flew out upside down. This person is the lord of the underworld. Act recklessly. Lu Qingyu's eyes were cold and motionless as a mountain. He stepped forward with his figure like lightning and came to the lord of the underworld. His palm lightly touched his chest. Bang! The huge force, like a mountain torrent, exploded instantly. A muffled sound came. Then there was a continuous clicking sound. The bones of the lord of the underworld turned into powder in an instant, and blood instantly spread all over the body. The aura on his body weakened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Want to use the aftermath to escape from here? It's a good strategy, but it's a pity that you misjudged your opponent. Lu Qingyu's face was still stern. He sealed the cultivation of the lord of the underworld. His spiritual thoughts suddenly rushed into the other person's mind and began to look through the other person's memory. Since he refused to hand it over himself, searching for his own soul was also a way. The reason why he didn't do this before was because he was worried that the underworld would leave some backup force. What if he just searched for the soul and the underworld's backup force appeared and directly wiped out the soul of the owner of the underworld? Then he would, fetching water from the bamboo basket was in vain. But now it seems that my previous worries were a bit unnecessary. The underworld did not leave any backup plan at all, and even the mind of the owner of the underworld seemed to be undefended, and the memory was at his disposal, and soon he found the inheritance of the underworld. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 543. Is this the inheritance of the underworld? It's really vast. After a long time, Lu Qingyu opened his eyes. In the depths of his mind, there was already another inheritance. It was an inheritance belonging to the underworld, which included magical skills and secrets, as well as some secret records of the underworld. There were even some inheritance belonging to the underworld. If he can integrate the power of the underworld, in addition to being able to advance to a higher level in the future, there will also be countless more subordinates. But now, the only drawback is that he has no time to practice many techniques. For example, control. The secret method of life and death for the subordinates of the underworld. He already possesses this method, but if he wants to use it, he has to spend some time and painstakingly practice it. How so? The lord of the underworld had a look of despair on his face. How could his inheritance from the underworld be taken away by others so easily? Ah! Lu Qingyuzong sneered and said indifferently, even now, don't you understand? The underworld is raising goo, and it doesn't matter who is the inheritor of the underworld, as long as it can restore the past glory of the underworld. For this reason, the inheritance of the underworld will belong to whoever has the strength. And now, it is obvious that I am more qualified than you to be the inheritor of the underworld. As he spoke, Lu Qingyu slowly raised his palm, and thousands of rays of light bloomed in his palm. Countless gods intertwined and turned into a dazzling talisman. The surrounding space began to distort under the pressure of the talisman. If this talisman falls, the lord of the underworld will have no way to survive. Hateful. The lord of the underworld was heartbroken. He spread out his palms, and a rune on his palm became more and more brilliant. However, the person he summoned still had no intention of coming forward. If his strength had not been sealed, he would definitely die before he died. Holding this person on his back. But it's a pity. It's too late now. Oh. Backhand. Lu Qingyu raised his eyebrows, smiled disdainfully, and said lightly, it seems that the master of Tianji is not able to get everything right. After that, he dropped his palm, and with a bang, the body of the lord of the underworld disappeared into thin air, as if it had never appeared before. After doing all this, he scanned the void with his eyes. Before coming, Master Tianji once said, the lord of the underworld hidden near the Xianguang realm, this matter seems to have been calculated correctly, but the owner of Tianji also said another thing. That is, when I am dealing with the Lord of the Underworld, things will not go so smoothly. There may be other people coming out to disrupt the situation, but until now, I have not seen the shadow of other people. If nothing else, the owner of TNG made a miscalculation. After all, people's hearts are still very complicated. Master TNG, how could everything be as he expected? Even if no one comes, some methods seem to be useless. Lukinyu breathed a sigh of relief. He waved and said casually, "Let's go back. Congratulations, young master, for getting the inheritance from the underworld. It will be just around the corner for the young master to set foot in the realm of the immortal emperor." The people next to me immediately came forward and said compliments. Lukinyu nodded nonchalantly and walked up towards the warship. The moment he entered the warship, suddenly, the corner of his eye twitched, and a sense of danger rose from deep in his heart, spread throughout his body in an instant, and the shadow of death suddenly enveloped him at this moment. Not good. Go back, Lukinyu shouted. His figure was like lightning, and he retreated quickly. He was very fast. But with a big black flag, he was even faster. Boom. A flag like ink spreads down, with overwhelming demonic power. The flag covers the sky and the earth, containing the sun, moon, and stars, just like a real universe falling down. This is a sacred weapon of the demon clan, and the materials used, even if it is immortal, the king is greedy. It is made from the sacred sand of the galaxy. This material is rare in every world. Because one star can only be refined into 1 grain of sand. And it is necessary to refine such a flag. God knows how many stars it will cost, but today such a legendary weapon suddenly appeared. There was no certain warning beforehand. The black ancient flag buzzed, the universe and the stars were eclipsed, and the wisps of breath came out, as heavy as billions. It was so heavy that the entire warship collapsed into powder immediately. Boom! A loud noise came. Chaos was completely blown away, and Lukinyu flew out. His body was in tatters, with bones in many places. He was bleeding, and blood suddenly covered his body. Although he avoided it in advance, still suffered unimaginable heavy damage. Although it has not completely lost its combat power, it is almost. Little Lord. Besides, Wang Che and others were shocked. They never expected that at this time, a terrifying figure would actually kill and severely injure their young master at the first time. Could it be that? Are these the other forces mentioned by the owner of TNG Tower? This is too scary. You know, my young master has already used his trump card. He is now comparable to an immortal king, but he was still severely injured. Is it possible that someone is coming? Is it that demon saint? Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look ugly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 544. Young Master, are you okay? Wang Che and others quickly rushed over and surrounded Lukinyu, protecting him in the center. At the same time, they were on guard all around, for fear that someone would come out again. No problem. Lukinyu waved his hand with difficulty. His face was ugly. It only took an instant from heaven to hell. 1 second, he was still complacent, but the next second he was completely knocked down. Although he said it doesn't matter, but in fact, his internal organs are going to be shattered. Whether the other party has calculated it mentally or not, he can be considered lucky to survive. After all, he is not the immortal king yet, but the person who takes action on the other side is the real deal. The immortal king. If he didn't have enough foundation, it is estimated that his body would have been blown apart by the blow just now, and only his soul would be left. it is estimated that his situation is not much better than that of the Lord of the Underworld. Lu Qingyu is waiting for Wang Che with the help of others. He stood up with difficulty. He barely suppressed his injuries, cupped his hands into the void, and said, "I wonder which Taoist friend came to visit and made fun of Lu. Form is stronger than people, so he has to give in. The other party obviously wants to kill him, but in this situation, he must pretend that it never happened, otherwise, the next moment is likely to be his death." As for Wang Che and others next to him could not bring him any sense of security at all. An immortal king wanted to take action. How could a person in the immortality realm stop him? The words fell. There was deathly silence in the void. No matter it was Lu Qingyu, Wang Che, and others were all very careful to guard the surroundings, but as far as the eye could see, there was only endless chaos surging. Apart from that, there was only a black flag, flowing with ink-colored brilliance, suspended in the void. In the middle, the flag was flapping, and there were mysterious symbols on it, looming. Obviously, the person behind the scenes had no intention of coming forward. Since fellow Taoist is here, why not show up and meet him? If I have something that fellow Taoists are interested in, I might as well show up and talk about it without being so pushy. Lu Qingyu took a deep breath and said. At this time, he already had some guesses in his mind. If nothing unexpected happens, the person who comes is probably the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain in the Sumeru realm. Only he has the strength of the immortal king and can severely injure himself with one blow. Now the Lord of the Underworld has fallen, and the inheritance of the Underworld is in his hands. The reason why the other party made a sneak attack is definitely not to avenge the Lord of the Underworld. Most likely, it is for the inheritance of the Underworld in his hands. Although he was a little reluctant to give up the inheritance of the Underworld, but in the current situation, even if he is reluctant to part with it, he has to take it out first. Otherwise, no one will be able to leave today. Another moment passed. There was still silence in the void. Just when everyone's heart sank to the bottom of the valley, the flag that had been floating not far away suddenly moved. Wisps of breath burst out, all kinds of auspicious energy flourished, and the glow became thousands of them. If there are rays of flying fairy light, the person who shines cannot open his eyes. Confinement in the void. A voice that was extremely indifferent came. This voice was very ancient and did not belong to today's era, but the meaning of the words was understood by everyone. When they heard these 4 words, everyone's spine went. It was cold, like falling into an ice cellar. The other party was completely murderous. He didn't want any of them to leave and wanted to kill them here. Wow! The flag rolled up, and a starry sky world evolved in it. It was refined from the divine sand of the galaxy, and contained huge star fields. Now that it appeared, a small world was instantly formed, indestructible, and it swept everyone away. Imprisoned in it? Demon Saint of Tianmang Mountain, do you want to fight me to the death? Lu Qingyu shouted angrily. He couldn't bear it anymore. Even though he said good things, the other party still refused to forgive him. This obviously did not take him to heart. Whether before or after his reincarnation, had he ever been bullied like this? With an angry roar, he raised one arm to the sky and grabbed the big flag with his bare hands. He was not afraid of the overwhelming power of the galaxy, and almost covered the sky with one hand. At this moment, the aura on his body rose rapidly. Emperor Realm. True Fairy Realm. Long. The Realm of Life. The Realm of the Immortal King. In less than a breath, he recovered to the peak cultivation level of his previous life and transformed into a supreme immortal king who looked down upon all the worlds and heavens. He stood like an eternal emperor. In the void, with every movement of his hands and feet, he exuded the aura of domination in the world. With one palm strike, he unleashed thousands of magical powers and countless Taoist techniques. With just one palm, many magic powers and endless Taoist techniques were turned into useless energy. The so-called imprisonment was shaken to the ground all of a sudden. The flag rattled, and the runes appeared on it, as if it would be completely broken in the next second. Lu Qingyu in the middle was like a wild dragon, charging forward, every time all of them were shattered for billions of miles in the void, and countless stars were beaten into powder by him. In the small world transformed by the entire flag, a scene of great destruction occurred. It was like the destruction of the world. Everything ceased to exist and was all destroyed by the immortal king. The atmosphere of the level was completely wiped out. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 545. How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the bright moon? The cold voice came again. Boom. In the pitch-black flag, ancient stars appeared one after another, turning slowly, and then rushed out, suppressing Lu Qingyu below and rumbling. Countless people were shocked. At this moment, the ancient stars all over the sky were majestic and overwhelming. It filled the sky and turned into an almost complete world, too close to them. It seemed that they could reach out and touch it. Even in the Xianguang realm, one could clearly see the scene here. I don't know how many people mistakenly thought that there was another. The new world has merged. A huge coercion rushed out and emerged in the hearts of countless people. It was difficult to resist. This was the power of the ancient star rushing out of the black flag, overwhelming the world. Click. Lu Qingyu's face turned pale, and his body cracked rapidly. Although he briefly recovered the realm of the immortal king, it could not last long. In just a moment, his body was about to shatter. Although his cultivation was that of an immortal king, his body, it is too far away from the realm of the immortal king. This body cannot carry his strength. If the conquest continues, the opponent does not need to kill him, he himself will be the first to be unable to bear it. Bang! Lu Qingyu swung his fist and shattered a piece of stars, but then more stars rushed over, dense and boundless, like pieces of stars, arranged in the sky. Lu Qingyu changed color. He also had knowledge about the galaxy divine sand. It is impossible for ordinary people to use too many stars to refine weapons, because if too much is used, it will cause unimaginable damage to a world. However, this demon saint uses almost countless galactic sands. This it was too unbelievable. But then, he thought of the identity of the other party, and felt a little relieved. In the ancient years, the other party once surrendered to the underworld, and the underworld swept all the heavens and worlds. This demon saint of Tianmang Mountain, it doesn't take much effort to refine the galaxy divine sand. After all, there are so many worlds. Taking some stars from each world is a terrifying amount. Boom! The fierce collision is still going on. The black flag flashes with lightning and thunder, falling down thousands of stars. It is as vast as a waterfall and as powerful as the 9 ancient heavens. It makes everyone's blood boil. It is almost drowning this world. This it was a strange phenomenon that shocked people's minds. On the other hand, Lu Qingyu moved vertically and horizontally, turning the light of his fist into eternity. He could shatter countless stars every time, but as time went by, he became more and more strenuous. It was obvious he began to feel weak, and the aura on his body had begun to weaken. The short-term recovery of the immortal king's strength could not be sustained. In another moment and a half, he would be beaten back to his original form. Once the immortal king's foundation was gone, he would have no power to fight back. There was a crackling sound, the flag fell, Lu Qingyu flew out upside down, and all the strange phenomena in the sky disappeared. Everything returned to calm. The black flag stood in the void. And Lu Qingyu was covered in blood and bones. His breath was sluggish. At this moment, let alone the immortal king realm, even the Holy Lord level could not reach it. He stood there quietly, his eyes were lifeless, and a pair of fists hung down feebly. His whole body seemed to have been taken away. Angry, like a walking corpse. He understood that he had failed. And the outcome of defeat was obviously not so good. No one knew about the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain who had never shown his face from beginning to end. What do you think? It may be to kill yourself, or it may be simply to covet the inheritance of the underworld. It's over. An indifferent voice came out, the flag rolled up, shrouded Lu Qingyu, and turned into a ball of black light. With a bang, the chaos was shattered, and he disappeared without a trace. Little Lord Wang! Che exclaimed. He rushed forward, trying to stop all this, but the flag shook slightly, and an overwhelming force rushed out, knocking him hundreds of millions of miles away. Just a breath, that's it, all the bones in his body were almost shattered. If the power had been stronger, it was unknown whether he could survive. Demon Saint of Tianmang Mountain, please let my young master go. Wang Che struggled to get up and screamed in grief and anger to the sky. However, chaos surged and the surrounding fields were silent. Everything seemed so lonely. The atmosphere of the demon saint had long been gone. At the same time, his young master also disappeared. No one knew that in a short period of time, the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain and his young master have arrived somewhere. They may have left chaos, or they may have directly entered the depths of chaos. After all, they cannot speculate on the strength of an immortal king. Yes, it is possible to cross a world in one step. If the other party does not kill them, it is obvious that they do not take them to heart. Brother Wang, there is no need to waste your efforts. The young master may have been brought back to the Sumeru realm by the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain at this moment. A figure walked up to Wang Che and said with an ugly expression. He glanced at the direction of Sumeru realm, sighed softly and said previously, the master of Tianji Tower has already said that someone will come to help the master of the underworld. But who could have imagined that it would end like this? Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 546. In chaos. The mist rolled. Wang Che and others stood there, lost in thought. This ending was something they never expected. Although they obtained the inheritance from the underworld, the young master was captured. Doesn't this mean that the demon saint from Tianmang Mountain is the biggest winner? We should have thought of it earlier. A man said helplessly. Beforehand, they already knew the news about the birth of the demon saint in Tianmang Mountain. Even they could think that the person who secretly wanted to help the Lord of the Underworld was the other party. And that demon Holy Spirit, how could he not take action? If he had been on the safe side, this situation would not have happened if he went to Tianji Tower again. It's a pity. They misjudged the strength of their young master. And Lu Qingyu was too confident, thinking that he had a trump card, and even if he was not the opponent of the demon saint in Tianmang Mountain, he could escape calmly. In the end, reality gave them a hard slap. The other party was also a person who had experienced a battle in the underworld, even if it was a long time ago and he had just been born. The strength may not have been fully restored. But, that is not something they can resist. Brother Wang, what should we do now? Someone asked. The young master is gone, and they are not immortal kings. If they rashly confront a demon saint in Tianmang Mountain, they are looking for death. These people are all tied together, and they are not an immortal king at all. Opponents. The other party may be able to wipe them out with just a look. The reason why they didn't kill them just now is very clear. They don't take them to heart at all. Infinitely close to the immortal king, and a genuine immortal king, that's a world of difference. I can only go to Tianyuan world once. Wang Che said in a deep voice. Brother Wang is saying, Tianji Tower. The person who spoke just now said with some uncertainty. Good. Wang Che nodded. But the people next to him were speechless. It is true that the master of Tianji Tower is very powerful, but his methods are all about deducing the secrets of heaven, and the young master fell into the hands of the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain. When they went to Tianji Tower, they only got the news of the death of the young master. What else can you get? Is it possible to avenge the young master? This idea, they just thought about. If they and others were all immortal kings, then revenge would definitely be unnecessary to think about, but in this current situation, revenge is almost a dream. It is better to save a small life, practice hard, and see if you can take the last step. At that time, you will definitely decide whether to go to Tianji Tower. And how many resources are needed to go to Tianji Tower now? None of them could tell clearly. After all, it was related to two immortal kings, the demon saint of Tianmen Mountain and their young master. Only God knew what the price of the two people's information combined would be. With just a few of them, it is really difficult to find out the details of the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain. As for calculating the other party, they dare not even think about it. In the face of absolute strength, any calculation is just a joke. Young master treats us well. Wang Chei's face turned cold, and an invisible murderous aura spread out, covering the other two people. His eyes were like torches, and he said in a cold voice, "Don't forget. Everything today was given by the young master. And behind the young master, there is an ancient family. We are just the guides at best. If the young master really has 3 strengths and 2 weaknesses, you and I can't run away." Speaking of this, the expressions of the other two people suddenly changed. Just now, they were indeed planning to hide in their hearts. After all, chaos is vast and there are countless worlds. With their strength, they can find a small world at random. They can become kings and hegemons. By the way, if you find a world like the earthly immortal realm, they are the founders of an era. Think about it. On the other hand, if the family members behind the young master come after them, they probably won't be able to resist even one breath. But at this moment, the best thing is that the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain did not take action against the young master. Otherwise, at this moment, the forces behind the young master may already have old monsters taking action. Although the young master has not participated in the battle of the underworld, but his family is the only force that survived the battle in the underworld. After so many years, no one can tell how deep the water is for this force and how many terrifying people there are, but one thing can be guaranteed. Even if they offend the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain, they cannot offend the forces behind the young master. After all, Tianmang Mountain has not developed, and the forces behind the young master have been accumulated for hundreds of millions of years, and can be called one of the immortal forces has risen above all the heavens and worlds, becoming the existence at the top of the pyramid. Then when will we go to Tianji Tower? The person who spoke just now pondered for a moment, then asked with a solemn look on his face. Better sooner rather than later. Wang Che glanced at chaos, sighed softly, and said, "I hope it's not too late. If nothing happens to the young master, that's all. If something happens, we will die. Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Che took a step forward, and his figure disappeared in an instant. The two people behind him looked at each other silently, and at the same time they followed Wang Che's footsteps. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 547. At the same time. Tianyuan World. The deserted city. The scene here is extremely prosperous. Faintly. It has become the center of the entire Tianyuan world, and there are creatures from other worlds every day, including the Zixuan world, the earthly immortal world, etc. Even. There are also worlds that have not merged. For example, worlds such as the soul world and the demon world. In terms of strength, these worlds may be equal to or even inferior to the earthly immortal realm. Previously, they only had a space channel in the Tianyuan realm. But as the world level of Tianyuan realm continues to improve, those creatures who have crossed over are no longer willing to go back. His hometown was just a remote place, but the Tianyuan world has now been completely transformed. The aura is extremely rich, and there are caves and paradises everywhere. One day of cultivation here is enough to compare with half a year of cultivation in your own world. In contrast, when I returned to my hometown, it was a bit unsatisfactory no matter how I looked at it. This day, a dragon roar came from the end of the world. Subsequently, a blue dragon, thousands of miles long, like a steel great wall, extending from the sky, its scales glowing with divine light under the sunlight. Even though they haven't gotten close yet, an aura of dominance over the world has already filled the air. Countless people were shocked when they saw this green dragon. Judging from the breath alone, this green dragon has reached the realm of the great emperor. What is even more terrifying is that there are 7 stalwart figures standing on the dragon's head. This is a bit scary to know. Exist in the Tianyuan world, although the world level has been improved, there are still very few people who have cultivated to the true immortal realm. On the surface, the great emperor is still the top combat power. And at this moment, someone actually let an emperor-level blue dragon serve as a mount. On the spot, many people from the dragon clan turned extremely pale. In other worlds, the dragon clan may not be the top existence, but in the Tianyuan world, the dragon clan is a huge ethnic group, comparable to the monster clan and the human clan. After all, they control the sea area and have many elite soldiers and generals under their command. Now, seeing their fellow tribesmen reduced to this, it would be a shame if they felt better. Is this Dawang City? On the dragon's head, a man in purple clothes, wearing a jade crown on his head, his eyes were like lightning, and cold light shot out when he opened and closed them. In his eyes were the ups and downs of the sun and the moon for eternity, extremely profound. He understood everything in an instant. This deserted city is unfathomable, but this Tianyuan world is incredibly weak. If it weren't for... The man spoke, with a hint of disdain in his words. But before he finished speaking, a white-haired old man next to him quickly stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "Clan leader, be careful, this is already a deserted city. It is said that the owner of Tianji Tower can deduce the past and future. We came here this time to ask for help from Tianji Tower. If we make the owner of Tianji Tower unhappy with our words, I'm afraid we'll come back empty-handed." "Great Elder, don't worry, I understand in my heart," the middle-aged man said slowly. In his opinion, Tianyuan world has unique advantages. This kind of treasure land should be inhabited by virtuous people. In the world of cultivation, who is the virtuous person? Of course, who has the biggest fist? Who is the virtuous person? If Tianmang Mountain had not happened, he might have followed the example of the previous Earth Immortal realm. He would first occupy a few geomantic treasures in the Tianyuan realm. It is a pity. Tianmang Mountain was born, and the Sumeru realm has no time to take care of itself. At this time, invading other worlds seems to be a bit suicidal. Not to mention, this Tianyuan realm still has Tianji Tower in charge. I only hope that Master Tianji is really as powerful as the rumors say, and that he can deal with the demon saint in Tianmang Mountain. The man murmured. The words just fell. The green dragon fell and turned into a man outside Dawang City, standing aside. The man known as the clan leader took several other elders and walked straight into Dawang City. The moment they came in, many onlookers quickly made way for a passage. Although they could not see the strength of these people, judging from the way they appeared just now, they were definitely not ordinary people. At least, at present, in the Tianyuan world, no one can be so terrifying. Let an emperor's blue dragon serve as a ride. It is estimated that no one in the earthly immortal world can do this. Excluding these worlds, then the identities of these people will be revealed. The other party absolutely, the creatures in the recently merged worlds are either from the Xianguang realm, the Sumeru realm or the Jinhui realm. Only in these few worlds can someone do this. Tianji Tower. The middle-aged man glanced at the direction of the Tianji Tower. He quickly arrived in front of the Tianji Tower and strode into it. Behind him, several elders followed closely. I'm Xiao Wushang, I'd like to meet the owner of Tianji. The first time he came in, he didn't have time to look at everything around him. He quickly bowed and saluted. Not long after, an elegant voice came from deep in the Tianji Tower. No need to be polite, just get up. Then, a figure in green clothes came into view. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 548. Sit down. Li Yun walked out step by step, with a gentle smile on his lips. He pointed to the side and 7 chairs suddenly appeared out of thin air. Thank you, Mr. Tianji. The corners of Xiao Wushang's eyes twitched slightly. This hand, the method of creating things out of thin air, surprised him. At that moment, he was sure that he did not sense any spatial fluctuations. In other words, this was not the secret of the Tianji building master from the storage room. Instead, he fabricated 7 chairs with a wave of his hand. This was a bit scary. As far as he knew, the immortal king did not have this ability. Creating things out of thin air already involves laws, and the laws it is the origin of a world, and ordinary people cannot understand this method. From this point of view, the strength of Tianji Luzu may be much higher. With this premise, Xiao Wu suddenly felt relieved. Tianji Luzu took action. I guess Tianmang Mountain is no longer a concern. Senior. Xiao Wushang handed over his hand. But before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Li Yun raising his hand. I understand what you mean, but I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. Li Yun waved his hand, raised his eyes, glanced at Xiao Wushang, and said nonchalantly, I will not interfere in any battle in the world. So, you want me to help you suppress the demon saint in Tianmang Mountain in Sumi realm? It's impossible. Well. Xiao Wushang was speechless. He and several other elders looked at each other. When they came, they got some rumors. The master of Tianji has always been unwilling to interfere in other people's affairs. They didn't believe it at first, but now it seems that it is true. If Master Tianji doesn't help, they will be in big trouble in Sumi realm. That is an immortal king. During this period of time, he disappeared without a trace, and no one knew where he was going, but everyone knew in their hearts that one day he would come back and continue to rebuild Tianmang Mountain. When Tianmang Mountain appears again, the human race in the Sumeru realm will be doomed. The demon saint in Tianmang Mountain has never been friendly towards the human race. Senior, don't be too busy refusing. At this time, an old man next to Xiao Wushang spoke. He had white hair and cloudy eyes. He was dressed in a loose robe and held a cane in his hand. He looked like a waning man. The old man. But the fact that the other party came here made Xiao Wushang look a little respectful. From this, it can be seen that his identity and strength are extremely extraordinary. The old man stood up tremblingly and said slowly, Senior, since those who are good at deducing heavenly secrets should also understand that the Xiao family is different from ordinary families. Li Yun nodded, non-committal. The Xiao family is indeed extraordinary. There have been more than one immortal kings born in their ancestors. They also participated in the battle of the underworld, which can be regarded as making great contributions to the Tianyan world. Ashamed. The old man held up his hands, with a look of shame on his face. Our ancestors were so powerful, and now, the Xiao family can't even produce an immortal king, and there are signs of decline no matter how you look at it. Of course, this is not entirely their fault. In fact, the Tianyan realm has been split, and the Sumeru realm alone is not enough for the Xiao family to give birth to an immortal king. However, this does not prevent them from paying homage to the glory of their ancestors. After all, within their ancestral land, there are still two immortal king-level weapons. To put it bluntly, in the Sumeru realm, these weapons are the biggest killers. It has a feeling that they can't come out from the sky, and no one can compete with them. But Li Yun changed the topic and said with a joking expression, "Don't you think that your ancestors had some connection with Tianji Tower?" This. The old man was shocked and said quickly, "Junior people don't dare to climb high." Originally, he had this idea in mind. The master of Tianji is so strong now, maybe he has already made a name for himself when the underworld existed. Just in case. What kind of love does the two sides have? Now it seems that this may not be possible. To be honest with the seniors, although the Xiao family is far inferior to what it used to be, their strength is somewhat higher. As long as the seniors can take action to suppress Tianmang Mountain, everything will be fine. The old man said cautiously. These words could not be more clear. As long as Li Yun is willing to take action, the price is easy to negotiate. After all, Tianmang Mountain is immortal, and everything in their Xiao family is not safe. Back then, their ancestors, but they are standing on the opposite side of Tianmang Mountain. Countless years have passed, and their ancestors have disappeared, but the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain is still alive and well. No one can guarantee whether the demon saint will settle the score. If Tianmang the mountain demon saint thought of them. Not to mention they had two immortal king-level weapons. Even if they had two more weapons, they would not be useful at all. Weapons are weapons after all. Compared with an immortal king, they are still far behind. I still say the same thing, I will not interfere with anything in your Sumeru realm. Li Yun shook his head. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the Xiao family suddenly felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. But the words that followed made everyone's eyes light up. But Li Yun paused and said slowly, "I have a way to restore your Xiao clan to the glory of your ancestors. Will you consider it?" Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 549. Restore the glory of our ancestors. The old man's eyes widened, with an incredible look on his face. Next to him, Xiao Wushang also stood up suddenly. Not only the two of them, but also several other elders also looked at each other, almost unable to believe that they heard words. Just now, they really couldn't understand the meaning of what Master Tianji said. Today's Xiao family is still the leader in the Sumi world, but compared with the Xiao family in the past, it is far behind. The weight of an immortal king alone is not something they can compare with. If it is true as the master of Tianji said, they can restore their ancestral glory. Xiao Wushang just wants to say one thing. We are duty-bound. No matter how high the price is, no matter what. There is an immortal king sitting in charge, what can the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain do to them? Even if they cannot defeat them, they can still protect themselves. Forward, senior, are you serious about what you just said? Xiao Wushang couldn't help but lower his attitude, even his words were a little respectful, and he asked. Before, they had received news. The master of Tianji once made people become great emperors, and even true immortals, but this kind of news, they just want to watch the fun. After all, the Xiao family has a big business now. It doesn't take much effort for a person to become an emperor or even a true immortal. But if you want to become an immortal king, that is another concept. Through the ages. In the vast history, how many immortal kings are there even in the Tianyan realm at its peak? It is a bit unrealistic to easily become an immortal king with just one pointer. Naturally, they do not. I think that the owner of TNG has this ability. But today, when the owner of TNG said something, their originally hopeless plan suddenly ignited a glimmer of hope. Just in case. Does the owner of TNG really have this ability? In TNG Tower, I never joke. Lee Yoon said lightly. I wonder how Senior is planning to restore our Xiao clan to its former glory? But can one person become the immortal king? Xiao Wushang asked cautiously. If not? Li Yun asked back. After hearing this answer, Xiao Wu suddenly calmed down in his heart. He and several elders of his family looked at each other, and both sides understood the other's thoughts at the same time. Senior, then. Xiao Wushang rubbed his hands and glanced at every elder behind him. Every time his gaze lingered, the elder he was looking at couldn't help but get excited. The people present here are all from the Xiao family. Although there are differences in their strength, they are not far apart. They are both at the peak of the immortality realm, only one step away from the immortal king realm. That is to say, they all have about the same chance of becoming the immortal king. This way, whoever was closer to the clan leader in the past was more likely to take the final step. You must know that this is the glory of the Xiao clan. Whoever can lead the Xiao clan back to its peak will have his contributions remembered by the clan for hundreds of millions of years. As for whether the patriarch will keep this opportunity to himself, they didn't think about it. Because the strength of the clan leader is still a little behind. He is only in the middle stage of the immortality realm so far. There is still a long way to go before the immortal king realm. At least, he can't become the immortal king now. Can the senior make the third elder an immortal king? Xiao Wushang asked tentatively. As soon as he said this, behind him, an elder with a white beard and white hair sat on the chair. His body couldn't help but trembled, and he almost burst into tears. He had instructed the clan leader to practice. Today he finally saw it. Reward. The hard work in the past seems to have paid off today. The other elders were a little disappointed and glanced at the third elder with envy. Of course, it was just envy. After all, they were from the same clan, so they couldn't say that they were the same. Jealousy. No matter what, the third elder is also a member of the Xiao family. No matter who becomes the immortal king, it will only be the Xiao family that will benefit in the future. Ken. Li Yun nodded. I also ask for guidance from our seniors. As long as we can bring the Xiao family back to its peak, no matter what the cost, we can bear it. Xiao Wushang was overjoyed and said loudly. 5 immortal king level items. Li Yun raised 5 fingers and waved them in front of Xiao Wushang. Ah! Hearing this, Xiao Wushang's face was stunned, as if he had been struck by thunder. He was stunned. There was even a look of surprise on his face that had not faded. 5 immortal king level items. This is a bit scary. The Xiao family, although they have a great family and a great business, are not what they used to be. With such a huge price, even if the entire Xiao family is bought in a package, they cannot get so many immortal king level items. Forward, senior, why is the price so expensive? Xiao Wushang asked with a bitter look on his face. Because this person's qualifications are somewhat inferior and his luck is bad. If he wants to become the immortal king, he will have to pay a huge price. Li Yun wrote lightly. This third elder was able to reach the peak of the immortality realm. This shows that he was also an amazing genius at the beginning. But in the TNG Tower, he was said to have poor qualifications. It is estimated that Li Yun is the only one in the world who is qualified to say this. The Xiao family can't even find an excuse to refute. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 550. Beside. The third elder of the Xiao family opened and closed his mouth. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but thinking that the person in front of him was the master of Tianji building, he finally did not speak. In his early years, he was also very high-spirited. He believed that one day he could cultivate to the level of his ancestors. But now, reality has told him everything. The immortal king is not so easy to break through. Throughout the ages, there have been many people at the pinnacle of the immortality realm, but there are only a handful of people who can become immortal kings. As for those who want to go one step further after becoming immortal kings, it will be like ascending to heaven. Patriarch, don't worry about me anymore. The third elder shook his head, and an old voice slowly sounded, saying it's enough for me to reach this point. But Xiao Wushang frowned. If the Xiao family did not have the immortal king in charge, their destruction would not be far away. The demon saint of Tianmang Mountain may sweep the entire Sumeru realm at any time, and the time left for them is really running out, maybe only a year, maybe only a few months. No one can guarantee how long it will take. Senior. At this time, another elder of the Xiao clan asked with hope in his words, if it were someone else, how much would it cost to become an immortal king? As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the other elders lit up. Yes. The third elder needs 5 immortal king level items, but that doesn't mean that others do the same. After all, the master of Tianji said that the third elder is a little less qualified and a little less lucky, but the rest of the people may not have this shortcoming. Of course, it is not ruled out that they need to spend too much. But it's impossible. The 7 elders of the Xiao clan present today are all worse than the third elder of their own family. There are always 1 or 2 people who have a higher chance of becoming immortal kings. Li Yun squinted his eyes and glanced at the speaker. If he read correctly, this person should be the 4th elder of the Xiao clan. His strength is similar to the 3rd elder, and even a bit stronger. Obviously. I asked this question because I had my own little calculation. You guys have different experiences and different fortunes. Naturally, the probability of becoming an immortal king will be greater or less, and the resources you will spend will also be different. Li Yun wrote lightly. Really? Hearing Li Yun's affirmative reply, the 4th elder's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but squeeze the palms in his sleeves. He asked excitedly, may I ask the master of Tianji, among us, which one will become the immortal king? The highest probability and the lowest cost. This one is simple. Li Yun chuckled. He glanced at a few people, and with everyone's expectant eyes, he said slowly, although I know, why do I tell you? The news about Tianji Tower is not something you can easily share with others. You should know that if this news falls into the hands of the demon saint from Tianmang Mountain, maybe he will be interested. A person who may become an immortal king in the future will invisibly pose a slight threat to the demon saint in Tianmang Mountain. Even if it is not a big one, there is no doubt that the demon saint will nip the threat in the bud. After all, no one wants to see their enemies gradually become stronger. What price do you think the demon saint would pay in exchange for this news? Li Yun said with a half smile. This problem is very fatal. At least for the Xiao family, it is true. But from the perspective of a bystander, the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain may not come to Tianji Tower at all. Because he is strong enough to crush the Xiao family. As long as all the people of the Xiao family are killed, the problem will naturally be solved. But for the Xiao family, no matter how unrealistic this news is, they have to buy it. If you don't know the situation clearly, you may have to spend a lot of unjust money. When the Xiao family is gone, there will be nothing. Senior, how much do you want to get before you are willing to sell the information in your hand? Xiao Wushang said in a deep voice. These words showed that he was ready for heavy bleeding. Not much. Li Yun stretched out 5 fingers, waved them in front of him, and said slowly, 5 immortal items. 5 immortality items. Xiao Wushang frowned. Hearing this, he breathed a sigh of relief. Compared with the 5 immortal king-level items, this is nothing more than a gift. He glanced at the 6 elders behind him. At this moment in his heart suddenly he understood. Maybe the price for the 3rd elder to become the immortal king just now was just the plan of the TNG building master. When their curiosity came up, they would naturally ask more questions. At that time, he wanted to know whether the great elder or other elders became the immortal king. The price is not that simple. In fact, the owner of the TNG building is indeed waiting for him here. It can be said that when he and others entered the TNG building, he had already fallen into his trap. Deliberately saying that there is a way to make someone from the Xiao family become the immortal king. Let me ask, how could they resist this temptation? Once they are tempted, they must obediently spend their resources. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 551. After all, 5 immortal realm items are not 5 immortal king level items. Although the Xiao clan feels pain, it is not impossible to take it out. Immediately, Xiao Wushang gritted his teeth, took out a storage ring from his hand, respectfully presented it to Li Yun, and said, "Senior, in this ring, there are 5 cultivation methods for the immortal realm. Do you think it is okay?" In the history of the Xiao family, it is also a family that has produced an immortal king. The family has the immortal king's method as a foundation. For them, even if they take out the techniques of the 5 ministerial realms, it will not hurt them. Can. Li Yun glanced at the storage ring and nodded slightly. That. Xiao Wushang hesitated to speak, but the excitement in his eyes could not be concealed no matter what. Rest assured. This is the news you want. Li Yun raised one hand and waved it out of thin air. A jade slip appeared in his palm. He penetrated it with his spiritual consciousness and carved countless words. After doing all this, he put the jade slip into Xiao Wushang's hands. The jade slip fell. Xiao Wushang stretched out his trembling hands, caught it respectfully, and then quickly looked at it. He didn't know it, and he was shocked when he saw it. The information recorded in it was far beyond it exceeded his expectations. Originally, he thought that the jade slips would only record who of the Xiao family could break through the immortal king at the lowest cost. Who would have thought that it would also record several other members of the Xiao family who were present? Elders, if you want to break through the immortal king, you need to pay the price. In other words, this jade slip directly indicates the price to every elder of the Xiao clan. If you want to break through the immortal king, you can directly follow the records on the jade slip. After preparing everything, go to the TNG tower and leave again. You can add an immortal king level figure to the Xiao family. The great elder needs 3 immortal king level items to break through. The second elder's breakthrough requires 7 immortal king level items. The 5th elder's breakthrough requires 2 immortal king level items and 6 immortality level items. Xiao Wushang read the content and couldn't calm down for a long time. Original. He believed that if the 3rd elder could not break through, judging from the actual situation, the great elder should be the most qualified. After all, the great elder is a veteran figure in the immortality realm. He has been in the current realm for countless thousands of years. Can be called a living fossil. But who would have thought that the most qualified person would be the 5th elder? The 5th elder was not considered to have top-notch qualifications at the beginning, but he has been stumbling all the way to where he is now, finally reaching the peak of the immortality realm. Everyone is a character, and his potential has been exhausted. But the master of TNG made it clear that the 5th elder's breakthrough requires the least value. Just 2 immortal king level items. As for the next 6 immortality realm items were directly ignored by him. He had already taken out the immortal king level items, So how could he care about the immortality realm items? Patriarch, how are you doing? The fourth elder of the Xiao family asked expectantly. He still has some hopes for becoming an immortal king. Among the elders, he is not the strongest, but he is not the worst either. Although on the surface, his chances are not big. But the matter of breaking through the realm is very metaphysical in nature. Some people can't break through life and death, but some people, once they have an epiphany, directly rise to a big realm. For example, I don't have this opportunity. There are results. Xiao Wushang let out a long breath. He withdrew his spiritual thoughts, held the jade slip in his hand, cupped his hands towards Li Yun, and said, "Junior, thank you for your guidance, Senior. You deserve this." Li Yun waved his hand casually. Xiao Wushang didn't say anything, and still bowed to Li Yun. Then he stood up and glanced at every elder. Every elder he saw, his heart couldn't help but he tightened his grip. Finally, his eyes stopped on the fifth elder. The fifth elder, who had been silent all this time, twitched at the corner of his eye. He looked startled at first, and then a surge of ecstasy emerged in his heart. He finally suppressed the surprise in his heart and asked tentatively, "Patriarch, why are you looking at me like this?" "Xiao Wushang, congratulations to the fifth elder," Xiao Wushang said with a smile. "In the jade slips, there is a record of the great elder and others. They did not spend much resources. They only had 3 immortal king level items. They, the Xiao clan, can definitely take them out. After all, the Xiao clan, in addition to immortal king level weapons, there are also immortal king level techniques. It is not a problem to get 4 items with gritted teeth. However, at the moment, it is obviously not more cost-effective for the Great Elder to become an immortal king than the Fifth Elder. After all, that it's okay to say that the skill is just a rubbing, but the weapon is different. It cannot be copied. If you take out a copy, you will lose 1 point. If the Fifth Elder becomes the immortal king, but there is no weapon in his hand, the power will be greatly reduced invisibly. When the time comes to face the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain, this veteran immortal king may be easily defeated, so no matter how you look at it, the Fifth Elder's breakthrough is the most cost-effective. Is it really me? The Fifth Elder suddenly stood up and asked with a look of disbelief. Good. Xiao Wushang nodded. Some of the other elders of the Xiao clan were smiling, while others had complex expressions. It was obvious that this candidate was not them, and they felt somewhat disappointed.